Welcome, the rare gems. The strongest connections are not built on words, they're built on what people do when no one is clapping. Sigma females operate on that principle. They're not interested in surface-level attention or people who just say the right things. Instead, they watch, silently, carefully. And if you find yourself drawn to one, understand this. She's putting you through a series of quiet, invisible tests. You won't hear a warning. There won't be a countdown. But every moment you spend around her is revealing something to her about you. She doesn't test you out of ego. She does it out of necessity because her peace is earned, not handed out. She's built a life of clarity and self-trust. And if you're going to be invited into it, she needs to know that you're not just another distraction in disguise. If you are a Sigma male, this won't feel like pressure. It will feel like alignment. Because you move through the world the same way. You value silence over noise, depth over charm, truth over performance. You don't need to dominate the space. You are the space. That's what makes you different. These unspoken tests are not about passing or failing. They are about presence, awareness, the ability to sit with truth without running from it. And if you can meet her with that kind of calm power, she'll know. She won't need to say it. The test will be over, and something rare will begin. Let's get started, the rare gems. Number 1. Do you handle criticism like a man or a boy? Test, where your ego either steps up or sits down. A Sigma female isn't here to babysit your ego. She's not going to sugarcoat her words just to keep the peace. If she sees something that doesn't sit right with her, something off in your mindset, your choices, or your behavior, she'll say it. Not to embarrass you, not to win some imaginary power game, but to see how you handle being challenged without being coddled. Because to her, criticism is not an attack, it's information, it's honesty. It's a window into whether you're mature enough to sit with truth that doesn't flatter you. If her words make you defensive, if you start sulking, if your tone changes or your energy shifts into punishment mode, she's already mentally walking out the door. Not with anger, but with clarity. She knows the difference between a man who's grounded and one who's just grown in age. A man doesn't flinch when given feedback. He listens, he reflects. He might even push back, but he stays calm, present, and willing to hear her. A boy, on the other hand, turns her honesty into a war. He needs to feel dominant. He needs applause, not truth. And in her world, that's a deal breaker. Here's the thing. She respects strength, but not the loud performative kind. She's drawn to quiet confidence. The type of man who can handle a woman with a sharp mind and a sharp tongue without folding or fighting. Because life with her won't be full of fake praise or flattery. It'll be raw, real, unfiltered. If you want to be in her life, you have to be emotionally grown. She doesn't care about status or muscles if your ego bruises like fruit. Handle her criticism with composure and she'll respect you more. React like a boy and she won't say a word. She'll just never bring her truth to you again. Number 2. How you speak about others. Test where your words reveal what's really hiding in you. A Sigma female doesn't need you to be on your best behavior when the spotlight's on. She's watching when it's not. When you're relaxed. When the conversation turns casual. That's when the real test begins. And you won't even know you're taking it. She listens closely when you talk about people who aren't in the room. She notices the tone, the language, the little digs dressed as jokes. Do you mock people behind their backs? Do you complain about everyone else as if you're the only one who's figured it out? Are your stories coated in judgment? She doesn't need to interrupt or call you out. She's not here to teach anyone how to treat others. She just quietly takes notes and starts planning her exit. Why? Because she's already seen how these patterns work. The way you speak about others is how you'll speak about her when things get tough. The same impatience, sarcasm, bitterness, it'll all be aimed at her one day. And she's not interested in being loved by someone whose kindness depends on who's watching. This isn't about being overly positive or fake nice. She doesn't expect you to praise everyone. What she wants to see is respect, even when it's hard. Maturity in how you describe people you disagree with. Restraint in moments where it would be easy to gossip. That tells her more about your character than any compliment you could ever give her. You won't get a warning when you fail this test. No dramatic goodbye, no explanation. She just disappears. Because if your words carry poison when no one's watching, she knows exactly what kind of damage you're capable of, and she refuses to be the next target. Number 3, the do you love the real her or the idea of her? Test where fantasy collides with reality. This is the final filter, the test that separates the ones who want her from the ones who only want the idea of her. And most don't even realize they've failed until they're already cut off. At first, you may be drawn to her strength, her mystery, her depth. She moves differently. She thinks differently. And it's easy to build a fantasy around that, to imagine her as this flawless, untouchable force of nature. But a Sigma female knows the danger in being idealized, because once you've made her into a character in your head, you've stopped seeing her for who she really is. So over time, she'll begin to show you the unedited parts, not as a performance, not as a trap, but as truth. The moments when she's uncertain, the days when her fire dims, the nights when she's quiet, unfiltered, maybe even a little undone. And your reaction in those moments is everything. If you pull back, even slightly, if you look at her with confusion, disappointment, or that subtle change in tone, she knows. You weren't here for her. You were here for the image. You fell in love with her strength but couldn't handle her softness. You praised her independence, but only until it got inconvenient. You wanted the story, not the soul, but the few who stay grounded, the ones who lean in instead of pulling away. Those are the ones she keeps, the ones who see her humanity and don't flinch, because that's love to her. Not admiration from afar, but presence through the real, raw parts. She doesn't need perfection. She needs depth. So if you're here to love only the filtered version, she'll let you go love the fantasy. She's too real to shrink herself for a role in someone else's imagination. Number 4, the can you sit across her and not want to own her? Test where control disguised as care gets exposed. There's something about a Sigma female that stirs people up. Maybe it's the way she carries herself, or the quiet force in her presence. But it doesn't take long before someone tries to label her, define her, or worse, claim her. That's when the real test begins. She watches what you do when you start getting close. Do you still see her as a person? Or does your energy shift into something more calculated? Are you trying to understand her or trying to contain her? Because the moment your curiosity turns into control, she sees it. And once she sees it, you've already lost her. She's been down that road before. People trying to tame her, dress her up in their expectations, shape her into someone more digestible. But here's what they always get wrong. She was never looking to be understood in a way that shrinks her. She's not interested in being anyone's prize, trophy, or badge of honor. She wants presence, not possession. She wants someone who can sit across from her and not try to outshine, outmaneuver, or fix what they don't understand. She wants the kind of connection that doesn't require dominance, but demands respect. Not lip service respect, but the real kind. The kind that lets her remain as complex and untamed as she's always been. And when you start playing power games, even if you think you're being subtle, she notices. Whether it's trying to box her into roles, make her prove her loyalty too soon, or turning attention into a currency she has to earn, she clocks it all. She's not fooled by charm wrapped in control. She's seen too much to be naive. If you can't sit with her and admire her freedom without trying to cage it, she'll walk. Not with drama, but with clarity. Because for her, freedom is not up for discussion. Number 5, the unmasked self test. The one you won't even know you're taking. Here's the thing about a Sigma female. She doesn't show all her cards. Not because she's playing games, but because her life has taught her that not everyone deserves access to her inner world. So when she shares something real, something raw, something that touches a nerve, pay close attention. You're not just having a conversation. You're being quietly tested. She might mention something that happened in her past. She might admit a fear, or show a side of herself that doesn't fit the strong, composed image you're used to. She's not doing it for sympathy. She's not looking for praise. This is the part where most people fail, because they treat her truth like a broken object that needs fixing. They crack a joke to lighten the mood. They rush in with advice, trying to wrap everything up in a tidy answer, or worse, they freeze. Awkward, uncomfortable, trying to steer the conversation back to safer ground. And just like that, she knows. You can't handle her truth, not because you're cruel or careless, but because you've never learned how to sit with something that can't be solved. Something that just is. See, this test isn't about your strength, it's about your stillness. She's watching to see if you can stay open while she takes the mask off. If you can sit there, steady, present, and let her truth hang in the air without running from it. It's rare. Most people are scared of what's real. They want the filtered version, the polished version. But a Sigma female is wired differently. She values depth over comfort. And once she sees that you can hold space for her without trying to own, fix, or sanitize what she shares, that's when the door opens. Because to her, that moment says everything. Number 6. The Can You Think for Yourself test. The silent filter that cuts deeper than you think. A Sigma female isn't impressed by how well you repeat popular opinions. In fact, the more you sound like a highlight reel of what everyone else is saying, the faster she loses interest. She's not trying to start a debate. She's trying to see if there's anything real behind your words. She'll casually bring up something, an idea, a belief, a social issue, and then sit back and listen. She's not looking for you to agree with her. Agreement means nothing without depth. What she wants to know is whether your thoughts are your own or just borrowed from the crowd. Have you questioned the systems around you? Have you ever broken your own thinking down and rebuilt it from scratch? Or are you just repeating whatever the loudest voice around you said last? This isn't about being contrarian for the sake of it. It's not about being edgy or sounding smart. It's about originality, awareness, the kind of thought that comes from solitude, reflection, and courage. A Sigma female lives in a world where she's had to rely on her own mind to survive, to grow, to make sense of things when nothing made sense. So, if you show up echoing someone else's opinions, she knows immediately you've never stood alone in your thinking. And that matters to her, deeply. Because a man who can't think for himself is a man who can be swayed, manipulated, or silenced. She doesn't want someone who just nods along. She wants someone who can meet her mind, challenge her, and stand firm in his own truth. Not because it's trendy, but because it's been earned. So when she challenges you, don't get defensive, get real. Because this test, it's not about being right. It's about being authentic. Number 7. The How You React to Her Intelligence test, where insecurity has no place to hide. A Sigma female doesn't parade her intelligence, but she's not watering it down either. At some point she'll say something sharp, maybe layered, maybe unexpected. She's not doing it to impress you. She's doing it to observe something deeper. She's watching how your masculinity holds up under the weight of a woman who's clearly thinking for herself. She doesn't need you to agree with her. In fact, she's fine if you challenge her, as long as it's done with respect and curiosity. What she's not okay with is the twitch she sees in some men when she opens her mouth and says something that doesn't come wrapped in politeness or predictability. If you flinch, interrupt, talk over her, or try to one-up her just to feel like the alpha, she clocks it instantly. It's not dominance. It's insecurity wearing a cheap disguise. Some men treat intelligence in women like a threat. They joke it away, they downplay it, or worse, they shift into competition mode, trying to prove they're smarter, more logical, more in control. But that tells her everything she needs to know. Your ego is built on fragile scaffolding. A man who's grounded, who's truly comfortable in his own skin, doesn't shrink or puff up in response to a woman's mind. He listens, he thinks. He responds from a place of strength, not defense. And that presence, that calm self-possession, is exactly what makes him rare. You don't have to be a genius to connect with her, but you do need the emotional maturity to not be rattled when she speaks from her depth. If her brilliance unsettles you, she won't argue or explain. She'll just retreat, quietly, fully, because for her, intellect isn't about IQ, it's about energy. And if you try to compete with it instead of respecting it, you've already lost her. Number 8. The Do You Flirt with the World test, where charm gets mistaken for weakness. A Sigma female doesn't just listen to your words. She watches how you move through the world when you think no one's watching, especially when it comes to how you interact with women who aren't her. She pays attention to the way you speak to the waitress, the barista, the woman at the gym, or at work. Not because she's jealous, not because she's insecure, but because these tiny interactions tell her everything she needs to know about your inner wiring. If your charm is something you hand out like free samples, if you constantly need to be noticed, validated, or subtly admired by every woman around you, you've already failed her test. It doesn't matter how loyal you claim to be. If you light up every time a woman gives you attention, you're not built for depth. You're built for dopamine, and she doesn't have time for that. See, to her, discipline is attractive. Restraint is magnetic. When a man is fully present, not scanning the room for his next ego boost, that tells her he's in control of himself. He has emotional sobriety. He doesn't need to be fed by glances, compliments, or suggestive banter. He's not thirsty for external reactions. He's rooted. This isn't about being cold or withdrawn. It's about self-respect. A Sigma female doesn't want to be someone's temporary focus just because she's in the room. She wants to know that your attention isn't something you give out recklessly. She wants to see that you can move through the world with dignity, not performance. If you flirt with the world, she'll see it, and you'll never even know you are being evaluated. She won't compete for attention. She'll simply vanish, because real presence doesn't need to prove anything. It just is. Number 9. The how fast do you try to define her? Test where labels become red flags, not compliments. A Sigma female pays attention to the pace at which people try to make sense of her, not out of vanity, but because she's had a lifetime of being boxed in by lazy assumptions. The moment someone rushes to slap a label on her, wifey, boss lady, intimidating, too independent, emotionally unavailable, her interest starts to die quietly. Not because she hates labels, but because she sees exactly what they reveal. That you're not here to know her. You're here to sort her into something familiar and safe. She's not flattered when you call her strong, if it's just your way of excusing emotional distance. She doesn't care if you think she's different, if all you're doing is romanticizing what you don't understand. And she definitely doesn't want to hear about how she's hard to read, especially when the truth is that you've never actually paid attention. You've just been too busy projecting. She doesn't need you to name her energy. She needs you to respect it, to let it unfold without squeezing it into a storyline. Can you sit with who she is without needing to simplify it? Can you handle the mess, the nuance, the contradiction? Because when you start trying to define her too early, it tells her something important. You're uncomfortable with complexity. You need control. And instead of learning her rhythm, you're just trying to lock her into something you can understand. That's when she ghosts. She won't argue about it. She won't correct your assumptions. She'll simply disappear because once she feels reduced, she knows the connection can't grow. If you don't have the patience or depth to meet her without labels, you'll never reach the parts of her that don't have names. Number 10. Do you notice what she doesn't say? Test, where the real conversation happens in silence. When it comes to Sigma females, most people completely miss the point. They hear the words, but not the meaning. They focus on what's being said and ignore what's left unsaid. But here's the truth. The real conversation with her never happens out loud. It's happening between the lines, in the pauses, in the shift of her tone, in the way she glances away for half a second before answering. She's not being difficult. She's not playing mind games. She just lives in a deeper world, one where emotions run beneath the surface, not out in the open. And if you don't catch that, if you need everything spelled out for you, explained, repeated, clarified, she knows you're not equipped for where she lives. She's not trying to confuse you. She's testing your emotional sharpness. She wants to know if you're the kind of person who listens with more than just your ears. Can you read the room without being told? Can you feel tension without anyone naming it? Can you sense when she's overwhelmed, even if she's smiling? These are the signals that matter to her. This is where trust is built. When she goes quiet in the middle of a conversation, she's watching how you respond. Do you rush to fill the silence? Do you change the subject? Or do you sit with her, fully present, showing her that you notice something is going on, even if you don't press her to talk? Because emotional intelligence isn't some bonus feature. For her, it's the minimum requirement. If you don't notice the weight behind her words or the meaning in her silence, she'll never feel safe around you. And if she doesn't feel safe, she'll never open the door fully. The ones who pass this test don't ask the right questions. They just feel the right answers. Number 11. The How You Handle Her Autonomy Test, where insecurity and control quietly get called out. A Sigma female isn't going to ask for permission to live her life. She's not going to narrate her every move, and she's definitely not going to pause and explain herself just to keep someone else comfortable. So when she makes a decision without running it by you, that's not an oversight. That's the test. It might be something simple. She leaves town for a few days without broadcasting it. She switches her schedule, disappears into her own world, or starts a project without mentioning it first. And then she watches. Not because she's being distant, but because she wants to see what shows up in your silence. Do you spiral? Do you ask controlling questions masked as concern? Or do you sit with your own discomfort and trust her enough to let her breathe? Here's what most people don't realize. Autonomy isn't her attitude. It's her lifeline. She's not hiding anything. She's just built a life where she doesn't need to explain her every step. If your version of love or interest relies on updates, check-ins, or a running commentary, she knows exactly what's underneath that. It's not care. It's control dressed up as closeness. She's not impressed by people who get anxious when they're not in the loop. She respects the ones who can sit in the unknown and not lose themselves. The ones who know that freedom isn't a threat. It's a requirement. The moment you start making her feel like she needs to shrink her independence to soothe your ego, the door in her mind starts to close. If you pass this test, she'll notice, because it's rare. Most people crave attachment that makes them feel powerful, but she's only drawn to connection that honors her space, her mind, and her movement without needing a play-by-play. In final words, you don't truly know someone until you've seen how they respond to what you never said out loud. Every Sigma female lives by that. She's not testing you to play games. She's not trying to confuse you or make you prove anything. What she's doing is protecting her peace. Her tests are quiet filters. They are built into how she watches, listens, and notices what most people miss. She's not waiting for you to be perfect. She's watching to see if you're real, and if your presence makes her feel more grounded, not more guarded. The truth is, she doesn't need to be impressed. She's seen enough performance to last a lifetime. What she's looking for is something deeper than charm or talk. She's looking for a man who doesn't flinch at depth. A man who doesn't panic at stillness. A man who can stand in the storm without trying to control it. And if you are a Sigma male, if you've chosen solitude over noise, clarity over comfort, and truth over popularity, then these tests will not threaten you. They'll call you higher. Because just like her, you move with intention, you listen with your eyes, you show up without needing the spotlight. That's what makes you rare. So when you meet her, truly meet her, understand what you're stepping into. She is not here to be won. She's here to be met soul to soul. No masks, no shortcuts, just presence. If you can bring that, she won't test you. She'll trust you. And that, my friend, is everything. Thank you for watching The Rare Gems, and God bless you.